So this is going to be possibly one of those commentaries where I have to stop speaking, and I'll edit this out for those of you that are listening, but I might have to stop speaking because people make noise in the fucking background. And I'm not going to have you guys listening to me speaking over a bunch of fucking background noise. But that's not the crux of this commentary. What I'm talking about here is a couple sound bites from the show Ladies in the Lobby, which is a Game Trailers hosted show, and it's essentially just sort of a webcast or whatever you would call it of different talking heads, pundits or broadcasters or people associated in some way with Game Trailers giving an opinion on games or gaming in general. And so this is a fairly innocuous show. There's nothing really controversial about it for the most part. I've watched, I think, 2 or 3 episodes of the show out of the 5 that exist. And I haven't really seen much in the way of controversy or stuff that's, well, man, I'm going to make a commentary about this or anything like that. But the most recent episode, there was a few things said by this person, Nicole Zalvalich, or however you pronounce her last name, unfortunately. And I'm not targeting her. I'm not saying that, oh, man, she's a problem and let me tear her a new asshole or anything like that. It's just, I'm going to use a couple clips from this 20-minute long webcast, and just, I want to talk about this because this is common thought in gaming right now, and it's fucking stupid. But again, this is not beating up on her, but I'm sorry, this is fucking stupid.
So I feel like a lot of games focus on war. We see a lot of shooters that are solving conflicts with guns and weapons and violence. And I'd like to see more diplomacy in video games. Maybe like Call of Diplomacy or like Diplomacy Field. Something along those lines. Let's get the UN involved. Let's have some meetings. Let's take some notes.
So one of the things that I, as a person that majored in political science, and I'm more likely going to get a desk job than I am something, on the campaign trailer or what have you. But I can tell you that one of the reasons why most people would not want to involve themselves in the UN or diplomacy or working with an ambassador or what have you is that it's fucking boring. It's bureaucratic. It is a lot of people sitting around talking and not really saying anything substantive, but making speeches and then doing things behind the scenes. I would say that it's pretty hard to actually make that a decent game, a game that isn't fucking boring. And that's why Doom without guns will never be a fucking game, because that would be a boring as shit game. There's no money in it. And one of the things that I have a problem with is that why must you bring up Call of Duty? Why must you bring up Battlefield? Why must those games somehow be in the line of your diplomacy game? And this isn't just her. This isn't just Nicole. I'm not targeting her. This is commonplace thought in gaming right now. And it's irritating. Not because I'm defensive of Battlefield or Call of Duty, but because it's fucking stupid. This is a fucking stupid idea. I don't remotely understand where this is coming from. And what's more is that there are countless games that involve diplomacy, countless RTS games that involve diplomacy, countless ones. And play those games. For fuck's sake. I don't understand where these people are getting this fucking notion that Doom without guns could possibly be fun, where all of these games exist. There are countless fucking games that feature diplomacy. There have been these games for fucking years. So you're asking for something that already exists, but you're putting it in you're using this idea of removing warfare from Call of Duty Modern Warfare. It is so illogical. It is so nonsensical of a position to have that it's amazing how common this is. This is not me hating on Nicole here. She's nowhere near alone in this thought. This is a thing in gaming, and it is fucking dumb. That's really all I have to say. And what's funny about this next clip is that one of the games that I could talk about in terms of having diplomacy is actually, it cuts to the gameplay of it. But this isn't Nicole's fault. This is the producer's fault for putting that clip over.
I would love video games to kind of not so much take a note from Assassin's Creed, because Assassin's Creed is like not factual, but I would love to see video games incorporate actual cool gameplay and interesting stories with actual factual events, so we can lie to ourselves and say that we're learning something while we're playing games.
So the first part of that clip is a little bit redundant in my opinion. There are plenty enough games that involve history. Whenever someone says something involving history in games, or I think there should be more of X in games, and X already exists in games. It exists to where just to the average person, to the average gamer such as myself, I can immediately think of several games in which you can, I mean, they overlaid one for fuck's sake. That's a classic example, and that's Civilization 5, that has been a franchise for years, and it is far from the only one that has parts that involves history. So it's just like a platitude. There should be more of X in gaming. There should be you know what I have a problem with in gaming, ladies and gentlemen? There's not enough bullet time. There's not enough slow motion in gaming when it comes to, you know, gunplay. That is not a thing that is in enough games. And I don't understand, why aren't there more games with bullet time? Why isn't this a thing in gaming? See how that sounds fucking stupid? Because that has existed in gaming for a very long time, and it exists in multiple games, let alone the one that I'm going to put a clip over just for essentially comedic effect, or to point out how stupid this is. And there's a second part to this that is even worse than the first, and I'm going to play it again.
So we can lie to ourselves and say that we're learning something while we're playing games.
So the point of games is not to learn. You can have some positive effect come from a game. There are many games that I've played in which I've taken away from them something that I may not have known before, or may not have been interested before. A good example is Max Payne. I was never as interested in Greek mythology as I was after I played the first Max Payne game. It inspired me to go read Homer and many other ancient writers that wrote on and made poetry of and were playwrights of Greek mythology. And that's my takeaway from that game. That was a fucking action game that had very little to do in talking about Homer, and talking about ancient Greece or ancient Athens, or mythology, really, more than just symbolism in the fucking game. That was just, you know, part of the setting, the dressing of the game, the decorum of a fucking shooter. There should not be games that are geared towards educating the player. And this, again, this is not me picking on Nicole. This is common thought. This is something that is talked about in gaming and has been a popular conversation piece for fucking years. So it's not just Nicole here that I'm picking on. But it is irritating because who wants to play an educational game? Who wants to play a game that is specifically designed to lecture the player about fucking whatever, history or anything else? That doesn't even sound fun. That concept doesn't even sound fun, let alone how the end product is going to play out. I just don't see how anyone can even still be arguing this. And I think that this is the reason why I'm making this video, is not to say to someone like Nicole, like, oh man, I'm so much more intellectual than you, or any shit like that. My point is, you're making these statements, these essential truisms about gaming at this point because of how often they're repeated. And they're fucking nonsensical. That's three fucking nonsensical statements. Is there should be more of X in gaming when it already exists in, you know, ad nauseum. The idea that game should be teaching you something more than you as the person interpreting the game and taking from it what you will. That the fact that we need to craft games around something, and it's just you should opine about it, and it's ridiculous. If you don't like Call of Duty, if you don't like Battlefield, or if you're tired of them, do what I'm going to do, because there's no longer any community on PC. I'm not buying anymore. I'll play other games. Oh, there's a fucking laundry list of games that are coming out this year. And there's a ton that haven't even been announced yet, probably, that are coming out early 2016, that I'm not aware of. There are countless fucking games to buy. Stop using Call of Duty and Battlefield as a means to critique the number of games in gaming. There's a finite amount of games in gaming. That's why we should talk about, oh man, we need to talk about Call of Duty and Battlefield. No, there's a fucking 100,000 other developers working on different titles that are anywhere from small little indie companies to huge developers. I don't know why we need to continue to talk about things in gaming that are just gigantic, empty-headed platitudes as to what needs to be done about gaming. Talk about the games that exist. And if you are going to have an idea about a game that should exist or an idea for a game, have it be something that's different. Have a unique fucking opinion. It isn't that hard. Give it a little bit, just a tiny fucking, an iota of a little bit more thought, and then come up with something original. And this, again, isn't a critique of Nicole. This is a general thing. You say shit like that to fill airtime because you have nothing to say. If you spend any time of your day watching just broadcast journalism, just TV journalism on the 24/7 news networks, they do that constantly. They just say whatever comes into their fucking mind or whatever's said to them in their earpiece by their producer, just to fill fucking airtime. Just so they're not standing there with a blank look on their face and not saying shit. It's filling airtime before commercials. And this is what I see. This is what I see in gaming. Just empty-headed, inane shit. Like, we're not actually talking about any... there are tons of substantive issues to talk about. That's the crux of this fucking video. The end.